Welcome to the SAG-AFTRA Foundation's Conversations at Home program. I'm Jenelle Riley with Variety. Before we're joined by today's guests, I want to let you know that the SAG-AFTRA Foundation is a nonprofit organization that relies entirely on donations to provide emergency assistance and free educational programs to SAG-AFTRA artists. This conversation today is made possible thanks to the generosity of our supporters. Over the past year, the foundation has given nearly $7 million in COVID relief to more than 7,000 performers. So if you are a SAG-AFTRA artist and you need help, please ask. And if you can help, please give. Information can be found in the description of this video. Thank you for your support. And now, without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce Regina Hall of 9 Perfect Strangers. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
This is an audience of your fellow SAG-AFTRA actors. So I actually always like to start by asking, how did you get your SAG card?
I got my SAG card from a McDonald's commercial. Yeah.
I thought I remembered that, but then I thought I might have been making that up.
Yeah.
Was it out here in Los Angeles or?
No, it was actually in New York. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
It was my first, I guess my first commercial. I was going to say my first national, but it was my first commercial. It was McDonald's.
Well, it is a product that I believe in, so I support that.
At the time.
So now you're here with 9 Perfect Strangers, which is such an unpredictable, funny, and touching journey. I know it's based on the book by Leanne Moriarty. Were you familiar with it before this project came your way?
No, I wasn't familiar with the book before, not until after. I actually, I was familiar with her, obviously, obviously, I mean, everyone was. I think they had seen Big Little Lies, but I did not know that she had already written a new novel. I didn't know anything about it. And so it wasn't until I read the script and then realized, and then was told that it was informed that it was based on her latest novel, or I was really excited.
So you weren't aware of like the fan base for this novel because
I think once people heard that it was being made, I became aware. I had so many friends who were like, oh my goodness, I love that. So that was exciting but then it's also a lot of pressure because there's a fan base. And when people love, when they love a novel, then, they're very aware if they feel like someone, ruins it, as they say. So yeah, it became something else once I became aware of that. But also it was also really nice to know that there were so many people who were fans.
it's probably good that you didn't know, I think.
I think so.
So it's so obvious having seen the series, but I'm curious, how much information were you given up front? Did you have all the scripts? Was it just sort of like a character description? And what appealed to you about the role?
I had a brief idea of the character, a general idea of the character and of the world. I think at that time, they gave me the first 3 scripts. I think that's all I had. And I obviously knew that David Kelly was writing it, which was exciting. I knew Nicole was starring and producing, and I knew Melissa was starring and producing. So those were the 3 things that I really knew and was excited, and that was enough to get me excited. And then, of course, there were other people who were coming on board and in negotiation. So it felt like to me a no-brainer. But I didn't know where Carmel went, her character.
Really? So how did you sort of find, and I'm assuming because everyone has seen this series, we can talk a little spoilerish, but how did you sort of feel when you knew, her character's journey?
Oh, I was like, I was excited. I mean, it was, scary too, because I don't know, it felt like I don't know. It was like, well, how do people feel for her, care for her with what? And then realizing when I did that she did what she did, you know what I mean? How do you show signs of that before that happens so that it doesn't come out of nowhere and people aren't like, wait, how did she just, you know what I mean? It was kind of just a lot of things to have to build into the character so that it felt kind of real and organic and believable, but also, you still could have compassion for her.
Oh, yeah. I mean, she's hiding a lot of secrets. There's so much about her that we learn from episode to episode. I don't know if you shot like one episode at a time or if you shot it like, one big movie.
We kind of shot it like one big movie. We did not shoot one episode,
Wow.
which was interesting because we had we had the same director. Luckily, it was great because we had all of our scripts before we started shooting. So we knew, the journey of each of our characters and our storyline. So that helped a lot, I think. But it's, thankfully, Jonathan did such a great job to just, he enabled all of us to remember what happened before, where we were going, and like, oh wait. And then we all were very connected to who our characters were. So we remembered too, that kind of the space that they were in right before something happened, even though we were kind of jumping around a lot.
Do you have any like physical way that you chart that journey to like keep track of like what's happened at a certain point? Or do you just have a really good memory, or maybe you brush up on the scene before?
Yeah, you brush up on the scene before and you kind of make notes in your script. I do. I will make notes to know, especially during like rehearsals when you're initially kind of breaking the character down, then, you have an idea. But it's also good to, but then some stuff you haven't shot yet. So sometimes you make a decision and you're like, gosh, if I had, because it's also what the other actors are doing. And so that affects your performance. And so sometimes you're like, ooh, maybe I would have made a different choice had I. Yeah. Those things, there's always just things that you're always going to feel like, God, I could have done that better. But I think that's just a part of the journey of performance.
Well, something I don't think you could have done any better is one of my favorite scenes when we see Carmel cut loose and start singing and dancing to Xanadu. What was it like to shoot that scene?
Oh, gosh. Well, I can't sing or dance, but it was great because it was kind of it was very freeing because she had, she was having a nice little trip on her the drugs she had taken, after what happened with Masha. But it was actually really, it was kind of fun and bizarre and really interesting because of just what Xanadu meant to Carmel and what that meant to her. And like, it was a very like free and like zoned out scene. I remember, but it was also, I don't know. I think by that point, Carmel was kind of going off the rails.
I'm actually curious because I think I'm the only person on the planet who has never seen Xanadu. So the song means nothing to me personally, but I know people have an intense connection to it. Does it mean anything to you?
Well, it does now. I have to tell you, before I liked Olivia Newton-John and John Travolta. Now it does because I listened, well, I had to memorize the lyrics, but I listened quite intently to the words. And it's quite a romantic song, know. And so for Carmel, it's heartbreaking because it's that time is gone. But yeah, it did it had a different meaning. That's what I should say after. But I did find out how many people really love and resonate with that song. A lot of people.
Love it. There's very strong fan bases in a lot of aspects of the show between the book and now that song.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, this show has such an amazing ensemble and you all work so well together. Did you know any of the cast prior to filming?
I did not. I knew Bobby Cannavale a bit from way back in the day, the days of Ally McBeal, but everyone else I actually did not know. And I met them for the first time, actually. Jonathan. I had met Melissa once at I think at TIFF, briefly at an event, and she was lovely, but was very brief. So no, we were literally 9 perfect strangers for the most part. Some people, obviously Melissa and Bobby had history, and but for many of us, many of us didn't know, and many may have known one or two, but we certainly all didn't know each other. We all got to know each other.
Yeah, I'm guessing because I believe you shot in Australia and you were pretty remote. I'm guessing you got to know each other pretty quickly.
We did because we were kind of, we were quarantined at first, and then, I think just to keep everyone safe, we did a lot of things together or with family. But yeah, we were in a strange and beautiful country, but it was foreign to most of us. So yeah, when we did stuff, like we were all the people we knew who were tested, so it was very safe. And then we got to know each other really well.
So not unlike the series that we're seeing reflected.
It's so true. I was like, I don't know if they could have planned this better, but it did feel like that. It felt, I don't know, it felt so organic. It was like they couldn't have even planned that better. And it worked really well. And everyone was really so lovely.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we got lucky in that way.
What was it like to just be back on a set after, so long? I have to imagine it was exciting, maybe a little scary, but really exciting and maybe grateful.
Well, it was interesting because we were in Australia and they had really low numbers, and we shot in Byron and they had, at that time, no cases. They very quickly, when they had, even small outbreaks, they very immediately shut down their borders. And so it did feel really safe. And then we had regular testing, and I think, and we, our crew, we wore masks. I mean, it was the first time. And I think we were all, very cautious, but I think being in Australia made everything feel a lot less scary, and it made a big difference. And I think also quarantining those 2 weeks and knowing that, gosh, everyone comes here has a quarantine, so it felt really strict just as a country as a whole. So I think that helped a lot, and I think it allowed us to have a lot of freedom in production. And we also, there weren't, the show doesn't have like large background. Like some of our background were our producers actually, and some of our like production members, they did background. So we kind of had this really, very safe world that we had created, and we were really fortunate.
When you went to quarantine, were you alone during that time, or were you allowed to see the other cast members?
No, we were not allowed to see each other. We were alone. There is no leaving your room to go next door and say hi. You are quarantined. You did not leave.
For 2 weeks?
For 2 weeks.
What did you do?
You could walk outside on your, on a balcony and look outside, but that was as far as you could go. Read my scripts, worked on stuff, just kind of, I don't know. It was interesting because it was, ironically, it was great preparation for what we were going to do, and we were just waiting for the 2 weeks, then we were kind of out, and then we were on a plane, and then we were just in Byron. And it was like, it was almost surreal, but, and then Byron was so beautiful, it was quite spectacular, to just look out and just see, the country. So yeah, no, it was 2 weeks of that's kind of when we were, for me, it ended up being a good period because it was a lot of time to just work on the character.
So I think probably your primary scene partner is Nicole Kidman, who is so wonderful and like almost ethereal as this otherworldly creature, Masha. I'm just curious, what is she like as a scene partner?
Oh, she's amazing. And I think that was one of the things that was so incredible to find out. When I read the first 2 episodes, I didn't necessarily know what Carmel was going to be. I didn't know what her arc would be. I thought it wasn't what I thought at all.
Really?
And no, not from the first 2. She was, no, actually, not at all. And then as I read on, and I was like, oh my gosh, I have so many scenes with Nicole, which was so exciting and also incredibly intimidating. But she's so wonderful to work off of and work with, and so generous as an artist. And so detailed and specific and yet so free,
Mm-hmm.
and just wonderful to watch, so for me, it was, I loved it. You know what I mean? I think just the way she works is, you just never know what you're going to get, and it makes you have to, it makes you different because you're, she's driving the scenes, and you're like, oh, I don't know if it's going to go this way or that way. And I think that's what's so refreshing about it, is that you could do take after take, and each take would be different and feel different, and you would feel different. It was obviously prepared, but also completely spontaneous.
Yeah.
So it was great. I did not like choking her, and Nicole was like, Regina, choke me harder. It's okay. And I was like, I'm not comfortable. Nicole wants me to choke her harder. Yeah, but she was great.
Am I remembering this correctly? Did she sort of not introduce herself to the cast until you really started shooting, and she kind of came out on set as Masha?
She did. Yeah, she did. And every day I was like, is Nicole coming today? And it was almost like, yes. So it was like, did Nicole come? It was almost like we were anticipating her. And so when we shot in the chakra room, and she actually came into the very first scene, that's the first scene we shot. Oh, it was the first time that we saw her. It was the first time I saw her, and I was like, oh, and she came in character and stayed in character. So
wow.
Yeah. I was like, she's tall.
I mentioned that obviously Carmela's dealing with a lot, and I'm just sort of curious, especially being, isolated in a foreign country. Was it ever challenging? Did you ever find yourself, caught in her headspace and kind of have to find ways to decompress from playing this character?
Maybe not her specific headspace, but certainly visiting the headspace that she was in, if that makes sense. For her, I think for her, I felt like she was incredibly, she felt really unworthy. Her self-esteem was so low. And also she felt incredibly invisible, and what that felt like for her, who certainly in other people who have sacrificed, a lot for family, to feel as though all who they are and all that they did, was unseen. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And even if you haven't gone through that experience, I'm sure everyone has felt that. And so it was kind of visiting those places. Mm-hmm. On the inside, but then on the outside, you are attempting, to be friendly and happy in the world. I don't think people who live in that space necessarily desire it.
Yeah. You mentioned you had the luxury of having the same director for all the episodes, which, isn't always the norm. And you have a great director, Jonathan. Is it Levine or Levin?
Levine.
It is Levine. Okay, that's what I thought. 50-50 is one of my favorite movies, so I'm a big fan. But you have worked with so many amazing directors over the years. I'm curious, what do you like in a director? What do you sort of hope for when you show up to set?
Oh gosh, every experience with the director is so unique. I love when I hate it, but I do love when they push you, to do something and you're like, God, can I do that? I can't do that, over, but the space to discover things. I love room for discovery, and Jonathan was so amazing because he was so collaborative. But I think ultimately I love directors who know what they want too, mm-hmm. who have a real vision for the project, and who are really able to use everything that they have, and who also know how to say what they want from you. I know that seems like nothing, but who are able to articulate the nuance of what they really want to see. And so that's always fun, because sometimes it's the subtlest thing, and you're like, oh yeah, it's kind of like someone who adds a dash of seasoning or color to something, and you're like, oh yeah, let's try it. And that's kind of exciting, especially when you're able to give it to them.
I have an actor friend who always says, don't give me too many adjectives. Like you're just going to confuse me. Like try to keep it down to 2 adjectives a sentence.
Yeah, and then it's like, and that the subtlety of that direction really, it leaves so much room for your imagination to then run and play and do something. Whereas so much makes you second guess or wonder, or it just, director who's able really to articulate and say what they want and keep you out of your head. It's really great.
So what did end up being the most challenging scene or moment or just part of playing this character, aside from singing Xanadu?
Right. For me, that what I hoped was that for women or men, whatever, but women, in my brain, who have been in a situation where, we're in such a time of youth and beauty. And when you feel like, someone possesses the 2 things that you can't control, and although that's our own work to do, but for people to have compassion for that. So it was really to, no matter what Carmel was doing, to really make sure that the humanity of who she was, just as a woman, of how vulnerable we all feel or have felt, and then to make, but so that people liked her, but also to make it a shock, to allow it to still be a surprise, that it wasn't like, for it to go back and forth, like, I think it's Carmel, or, oh no, it's not Carmel, or it couldn't be Carmel. I think kind of to reveal that, all those layers of secrets, but still really playing the truth of her and how she felt. And she totally had this kind of obsession probably that grew in her mind about Masha.
Yeah.
Many days of daydreaming, but also she did like her.
Mm-hmm.
All those things are true. So I think just to keep her honest, but also not reveal what she had done.
I mean, I find her to be incredibly sympathetic, honestly. I obviously Masha does too. But I am curious if I can get a little spoilery. And if you haven't seen it, I think everyone has seen it, but maybe mute this part. What was it like sort of the first time you saw yourself in the hair and makeup, where you're playing the shooter? Because I just thought it was such a stroke of genius, and the way that they laid the breadcrumbs about her being a makeup artist and, her whole history. It was really, really well done. But you also looked amazing.
Yeah, what was great about that? It was enough so people heard it but didn't pay any attention. Like, so it's like, well, how do I mention this? But it's definitely not a clue.
Yeah.
Like, but it adds up at the end, and you remember, oh, right, because she did. And, it was the most exciting time of her life. But it was really, because I was like, well, what are we going to do? What I liked was when I read the script myself, it seemed like just a catalyst for Masha to become who she was. I never thought that there would be any kind of callback to that shooter. When I read the scripts, I was like, oh, look, and now this is why she started this whole thing. So I never thought that was going to come back. So I remember Jonathan, when I first did it, he was like, you're running like a girl. I ran like a girl. And I was running like a girl. And he's like, so, trying to run like a guy. And then seeing myself, my assistant was like, you look just like your brother. And I was like, don't you dare say it. But I do not, but I guess I do. But it was fun. It was fun. It was also, I couldn't see what they were shooting. So it's kind of like, how's my stance? Does it look like the guy? So that it wouldn't be tipped off. But, it's New York City. People get mugged for money all the time. So I don't think people, but it was kind of like, are you sure you can't tell it's me? But the way they shot it, I think people really couldn't tell until the end. The contact was the hardest thing.
Yeah, I bet. But I thought they did it just brilliantly so that it wasn't like heavy prosthetics.
No.
Just enough.
You know what? They didn't even do what she did was she took hair, cut it really short, put glue on my face, and then dabbed the hair on to the glue with a brush so that it wasn't like a big beard. It was just like enough to kind of, camouflage who it was, and then the one eye, and then we just did a baseball cap and like big guy clothes.
Yeah, no, it was just subtle enough. It was really, really perfect. I know this is obviously based on a book and this is a limited series. Still, it's an amazing cast. I like where we saw your character ending up at the end. Has there been any talk of maybe revisiting for a second season?
Gosh, I don't know. I really don't know. Our producers would probably have to get on the phone with Nicole and Melissa, but I will say this, the great thing about it is like to be able to have a cast you enjoy, and a director you enjoy. I mean, especially when you're going to be somewhere else for 4 months many people away from their own family and friends. So to be able to kind of make a new one and then have the people who have their families there extend theirs to say, come break bread with my family. It's nice, but and I think that's what made it. I think that's what made the relationships feel kind of real. Like I ended up loving Luke, as horrible as his character was to Carmel at the beginning. But he's so great, and I love that they got to. I love that they got to be close to each other.
Yeah. Well, I would love to see what is up next for Carmel, frankly. So be it a spinoff or a second season, I would be there. But I want to thank you so much for joining us today. And on behalf of the SAG-AFTRA Foundation, thank you so much for sharing your craft and experiences with your fellow actors.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I always love when we have these conversations. I can't wait till we do it again in person.